Good day, and welcome to Hiroshima University's English Podcast.
Hi everyone! Thanks for coming to Hiroshima University's English Podcast. I'm Kay. Hey Joe, it's your turn to speak. Joe, why are you looking away from the microphone? You should look this direction, toward me. Joe, turn around, please. I cannot see your face. Joe, you have no face. Mujina.
Hi everyone, I'm here, and I have turned back into regular Joe.
Thank goodness. I'm glad you're not a Mujina.
Everyone, as you might know, a Mujina is like a badger or a Japanese tanuki. And in Japanese stories, it can change forms into a human. And like a Japanese fox and a tanuki, a Mujina often tries to trick or haunt people.
幽霊などに化けて人を怖がらせます。
Yeah, a Mujina can haunt people. And it can even sometimes be like a faceless ghost.
In Japanese, のっぺらぼう。
A faceless ghost.
Anyway, I'm glad you're not a Mujina, Joe.
Am I really not, Kay?
Let's get serious now. The reason we're talking about Mujinas is because that's the name of our story today.
Right. The story is called Mujina, from the book called Kwaidan, written by Lafcadio Hearn, also known as Koizumi Yakumo.
Joe, can you tell us a bit about Koizumi Yakumo's life?
Sure, Kay. It was an interesting life. Lafcadio Hearn was born in the country of Greece in 1850. That's near the end of the Edo period. He was born on a small Greek island named Lafcadia. So that's how he got the name Lafcadio.
Oh, I wondered about that unusual name.
Lafcadio's father was from Ireland, which is part of Great Britain, and his mother was from a relatively rich Greek family. So, Lafcadio was bicultural.
Yes, British and Greek.
Lafcadio's father was a doctor in the British Army, and the family moved back to Ireland. But Lafcadio had a very difficult childhood. First, his mother abandoned him.
お母さんに捨てられてしまいました。かわいそうです。
Then, soon after, his father abandoned him too. So, Lafcadio was taken care of for a little while by the father's aunt. But then she abandoned Lafcadio too when he was a teenager.
Oh, poor Lafcadio.
Also, when Lafcadio was 16, he severely injured one of his eyes and became blind. And the other eye was not very good either, so he always had very poor eyesight.
Ah, how on earth did he travel to Japan and become such a good writer?
Luckily, Lafcadio was very curious and intelligent, often spending time at libraries and museums.
Oh, libraries and museums?
And the Hearn family had some money for a while, so Lafcadio went to some pretty good schools in France and England. Lafcadio became fluent in French.
Wow, he was smart.
But by the age of 17, his aunt became poor and Lafcadio had to leave, going to London, where Lafcadio was very, very poor.
Ow, but even poor people can become great, right?
Right. Lafcadio's life changed when he was 19 and was given a one-way boat trip ticket to America.
Oh, it sounds like Jack on the Titanic.
Right. Hearn made it to America, but he had no money.
Oh.
After working at very hard jobs for a couple of years, he became a newspaper journalist. Hearn was very talented and a good writer, first in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the north central area, and then in New Orleans in the south.
Finally, his talent saved him.
Yes, and at the age of 40, in 1890, he came to Japan as a journalist. But he fell in love with Japan and stayed here the rest of his life.
Yay, Japan is great.
Of course, but Japan has bad points as well as good points, Kay.
I agree.
First, Hearn got a job as a teacher in Matsue in Shimane Prefecture. He stayed in Shimane only a little over 1 year, but he married Koizumi Setsuko, the daughter of a local samurai family.
Very romantic.
Hearn lived most of the rest of his life in Tokyo as a literature teacher at Tokyo Imperial University and Waseda University. He and Setsuko had 4 children together. Hearn wrote in English about Japan so that foreigners could learn about Japan. He died of heart problems in 1904 at the age of 54.
Oh, a life full of ups and downs.
Yes, and today, Kay, at Hiroshima University's English podcast, we have one of his most famous stories called Mujina.
Let's tell everyone about some of the trickier expressions.
Okay. First, the story begins in Tokyo at a place called the Slope of the Province of Ki.
Slope, of course, means shamen, and Ki is the old name for the area of Wakayama Prefecture, but this, again, is a certain place in Tokyo.
And it's next to a moat with high banks.
お城の外堀 with high 川岸 or 土手.
Yes, there's a moat with high banks, and it's next to the lofty walls of an imperial palace.
That means the high walls of Kokyu or Miyajiro.
And at night, when it was very, very dark, belated pedestrians would go miles out of their way rather than mount the slope alone after sunset.
Belated pedestrians means people walking who are late. In this case, late in going home.
Yes, belated pedestrians after sunset would go miles out of their way rather than mount the slope.
That means that people really tried to avoid that area. They didn't want to mount, to climb the slope in that scary, dark area.
The last person who saw the Mujina was an old merchant of the Kyobashi quarter.
A quarter means a certain area in a city. For example, the French quarter of New Orleans would be the French neighborhood of New Orleans.
Right.
So he was a businessman in the Kyobashi area.
That night, he saw a woman crouching by the moat.
うずくまっている.
Crouching, and she was weeping bitterly, crying terribly. The man didn't want her to drown herself.
受水自殺しないでということですね。
So, he offered her any assistance or consolation in his power.
Consolation means advice or 慰問.
Yes, he offered her consolation. She was a slight and graceful person, handsomely dressed.
That means she was thin but yuga and was dressed well.
Slight and graceful and handsomely dressed. He wanted to help her, and he really meant what he said.
That means 心から誠実に話していた。
He wanted to help her, and he really meant what he said. And he implored the girl not to cry.
That means he asked the girl strongly. 懇願した。
He implored the girl not to cry, but she continued to moan and sob behind her sleeve.
袖で泣き顔を隠しながらうめいていました。
She moaned and sobbed behind her sleeve and stroked her face.
That means she rubbed her face.
But, suddenly the man saw that she had no face.
Oh no!
So he screamed and ran on and on.
That means he kept running and kept running.
He ran on, and he did not dare to look back.
He did not have the courage to look back. 勇気がありませんでした。
He never dared to look back. Then he saw a lantern far away which looked like the gleam of a firefly.
蛍火のような提灯の明かりが遠くに見えました。
He saw a lantern which looked like the gleam of a firefly. So he made for it.
That means he went toward it quickly.
He made for the lantern. It proved to be...
That's a fancy way to say it was.
It proved to be the lantern of an itinerant soba seller.
Itinerant means he moves around a lot. 行商人。
An itinerant soba seller and his stand.
そばの屋台。
The scared man flung himself down at the feet of the soba seller.
To fling means to throw. The past is flung.
The scared man flung himself down at the feet of the soba seller and panted.
息切れした。He panted.
Then the soba seller, who was a peddler,
Again, 行商人。An itinerant salesman.
The peddler queried the scared man.
That means the peddler asked the scared man a question.
Yes, he asked the scared man if robbers had hurt him.
Thieves, 泥棒, robbers, they are basically the same.
And the soba seller stroked his own face, which therewith became like unto an egg.
That's a fancy, older, poetic way to say his face then became like an egg.
The soba seller's own face therewith became like unto an egg. And simultaneously the light went out.
Exactly at the same time the light went out.
And with that, let's listen to the story.
Mujina. On the Akasaka Road in Tokyo, there is a slope called Ki no Kuni Zaka, which means the slope of the province of Ki. I do not know why it is called the slope of the province of Ki. On one side of this slope, you see an ancient moat, deep and very wide, with high green banks rising up to some places of gardens. And on the other side of the road extend the long and lofty walls of an imperial palace. Before the era of street lamps and genikishas, this neighborhood was very lonesome after dark, and belated pedestrians would go miles out of their way rather than mount the Ki no Kunizaka alone after sunset. All because of a Mujina that used to walk there. The last man who saw the Mujina was an old merchant of the Kyobashi quarter who died about 30 years ago. This is the story as he told it. One night, at a late hour, he was hurrying up the Ki no Kunizaka when he perceived a woman crouching by the moat, all alone and weeping bitterly. Fearing that she intended to drown herself, he stopped to offer her any assistance or consolation in his power. She appeared to be a slight and graceful person, handsomely dressed, and her hair was arranged like that of a young girl of a good family.
お嬢中,
He exclaimed, approaching her.
お嬢中, do not cry like that. Tell me what the trouble is, and if there be any way to help you, I shall be glad to help you.
He really meant what he said, for he was a very kind man. But she continued to weep, hiding her face from him with one of her long sleeves.
お嬢中,
He said again, as gently as he could.
please listen to me. This is no place for a young lady at night. Do not cry, I implore you. Only tell me how I may be of some help to you.
Slowly she rose up, but turned her back to him, and continued to moan and sob behind her sleeve. He laid his hand lightly upon her shoulder, and pleaded,
お嬢中, 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 listen to me, just for one little moment. お嬢中, お嬢中.
Then that Ojochu turned around and dropped her sleeve and stroked her face with her hand. And the man saw that she had no eyes or nose or mouth, and he screamed and ran away. Up Ki no Kunizaka he ran, and all was black and empty before him. On and on he ran, never daring to look back, and at last he saw a lantern, so far away that it looked like the gleam of a firefly, and he made for it. It proved to be only the lantern of an itinerant soba seller, who had set down his stand by the roadside. But any light and any human companionship was good after that experience, and he flung himself down at the feet of the soba seller, crying out,
Kore!
roughly exclaimed the soba man.
Here! What is the matter with you? Anybody hurt you? No, nobody hurt me.
Panted the other.
Only scared you?
Queried the peddler, unsympathetically.
Robbers? Not robbers. Not robbers.
Gasped the terrified man.
I saw a woman by the moat, and she showed me, I cannot tell you what she showed me. Huh? Was it anything like this that she showed you?
Cried the soba man, stroking his own face, which therewith became like unto an egg. And, simultaneously, the light went out.
Wow, Joe. Poor guy. The scared man needed someone to help him, but the sober seller was also a Mujina, not bearable.
The scared man was not a lucky guy.
Joe, if you were haunted by a faceless monster, what would you do?
I'd probably faint.
Haha, 気を失う? I would scream, run away, and then faint too.
Everyone, we hope you liked our drama today.
And we'll be back next month with another exciting story from Kwaidan. Joe, which story will it be next month?
Next month it will be It's a Secret K.
Oh, again.
But I guarantee you, everyone, it will be maybe Lafcadio Hearn's very most #1 famous story.
Oh, sounds good.
And next time, we'll also talk about some of the differences and similarities between American and Japanese ghost stories.
Great! See you next time at Hiroshima University's English podcast.
Bye!
Bye!